All right, let's just jump right into this explainer because we're looking at a genuinely fascinating question today, one we honestly rarely stop to think about. Long before humans ever spoke a single word, we actually had something else. We had this strange, rich, and incredibly sophisticated communication system that kept us alive. It coordinated our tribes and ultimately laid the groundwork for every spoken language on Earth. Today, we're digging into the silent operating system of early humanity.
So picture this. You're in a completely life-or-death scenario. You need to instantly broadcast a mortal threat, like, say, a massive predator creeping up, across your entire camp. But here's the catch. If you make a sound, you're going to attract that predator straight to yourself. So how on earth did our ancestors manage to transmit that kind of critical data millions of years before speech was even a thing?
Well, the answer to that survival problem is actually right there on your face. More specifically, it's in the 43 muscles of the human face. We literally have more facial muscles than almost any other animal out there. And evolution didn't just wire those up so we could chew our food better. It basically built an ancient biological hardware device designed specifically for communication.
To really grasp how powerful this hardware is, you've got to look at the work of psychologist Paul Ekman. He spent decades mapping the human face and identified what he calls microexpressions. These are involuntary flickers of emotion that leak through in less than a fifth of a second. And the crazy part, he proved these biological broadcasts are completely universal. A look of terror is the exact same in rural Papua New Guinea as it is in downtown Tokyo. Disgust is just disgust everywhere. Which means our ancestors were successfully transmitting and reading complex emotional data millions of years ago. It wasn't just a byproduct of having feelings. It was a deliberate, hyper-fast signal shaped by natural selection to keep the group alive.
Section 1. Hands, Posture, and Space.
But hey, the face was really just the starting line. Let's talk about our hands and bodies. If we look at our evolutionary cousins, the great apes, we see this remarkably complex gestural system. Researchers actually cataloged over 80 distinct gestures used by wild chimps. And these aren't just random flails. They require direct eye contact, they demand a response, and they mean the same thing across totally different uncontacted groups. What's absolutely mind-blowing here is that Broca's area, the part of your brain most associated with language today, sits in the exact same territory that controls fine hand movements. It's like our hands literally built the neurological highway that our mouths eventually learned to drive on.
And that brings us to a huge evolutionary leap, perfectly illustrated by pointing. Think about it. If you point at a ball, a dog is just going to stare at your finger. But human infants, even before they can say a single word, a 9-month-old baby will follow your point to intentionally share attention with you. They want you to experience what they're experiencing. That is a massive cognitive distinction, and it strongly suggests human language actually started right in our fingertips.
Alongside gestures, our ancestors were absolute masters of proxemics. This is basically the study of how we use physical space. Think about making yourself look bigger when you're threatened, or dropping your chin in submission. It's who stands close to who angles their body away, or the difference between a quick tap and a tight grip on the shoulder. Early humans used these postural and tactile cues to build entire social hierarchies and alliances, all without making a peep.
Section 2. Sound and Social Glue.
So here's the catch with gestures and posture. They only work if you can actually see the other person. Early humans spent a lot of time in dense forests and pitch-black nights, so we absolutely needed an acoustic channel to fill in the blanks. Just look at vervet monkeys. They use what are called functionally referential sounds. Basically, they don't just scream when they panic. If they see an eagle, they have a highly specific alarm call that tells the troop to scramble into the bushes. If they see a snake, it's a totally different call that means stand up and check the ground. These aren't just noises. They're carrying hard data about the environment that triggers precise survival tactics. Our early ancestors almost certainly had a vocal system just like this, acting as a stepping stone between raw emotion and true language.
Now, as human tribes started getting bigger, sound took on this whole other vital job. In primate groups, physical grooming is how you bond. But you literally cannot one-on-one groom a tribe of 150 people. There aren't enough hours in the day. So anthropologists argue we developed rhythm. Drumming, clapping, moving in sync. These actions actually trigger oxytocin and raise our pain thresholds. Rhythm became this massive social glue. It was essentially grooming at a distance, allowing us to bond dozens of people all at exactly the same time.
Section 3. The Invisible World of Smell.
All right, we can't talk about early communication without bringing up something totally subconscious, the olfactory universe. I know we don't usually think of smelling as communicating, but humans are wildly sensitive to chemosignals.
Early humans were basically swimming in a constant stream of social data through scent. We can literally smell fear. The sweat from a terrified person triggers threat responses in our own brains, completely bypassing conscious thought. We can detect sickness through chemical signatures. Evolution even uses smell to quietly calculate genetic compatibility for mates based on immune system profiles. It was a constant, invisible channel of vital information.
Section 4. The bridge to language. So, how exactly do we get from smelling fear and pointing at things to the syntactical marvel we call language? Since words don't leave fossils, scientists look at the evolution of stone tools as a proxy for our brain power. Notice the big jump around 1.76 million years ago with Acheulean hand axes. Crafting one of these is not easy. You have to hold a 3D shape in your mind, plan multiple steps ahead, and execute a sequence to reach a future goal. That is hierarchical sequential cognition. And guess what? That is the exact same mental architecture you use to construct a sentence, where every word dictates what can come next. The brain hardware for syntax was slowly assembling for millions of years.
And that cognitive upgrade unlocks something super unique to humans: over-imitation. We don't just look at an outcome and try to recreate it. We copied the exact method perfectly, even if some of the steps seem completely useless, because our brains assume the sequence has hidden meaning. This created a purely nonverbal teaching system. Through scaffolded demonstration, early humans could accumulate knowledge, perfect tool-making, and pass down tracking skills for hundreds of thousands of years before anyone could articulate a single word of instruction.
Section 5. The dual system today. Okay, so this brings us to a really fascinating realization. When grammar and spoken words finally showed up, they didn't replace that ancient communication system. They just acted like a software update layered right on top of it. And this dual system is exactly why you get that weird gut feeling when someone lies to you. If someone says, "I'm fine," but their voice is dead flat, their arms are tightly crossed, and they won't look you in the eye, which channel do you actually believe? You believe the body, every time. Your ancient hardware spots the mismatch immediately, and you instinctively trust the biologically reliable, millions of years old nonverbal system over those newer, easily manipulated words.
We are creatures running on a deeply rich, multi-channel system. So the next time you shoot someone a knowing glance across a crowded room, or you instantly feel the energy shift in a meeting before a single word is even spoken, ask yourself, are you just being quiet, or are you flawlessly speaking a language millions of years in the making?